Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pierce. This is a geopolitical news update concerning everything going on in the world at the moment. Well, probably not everything, but a little bit of what's going on in the world. And my goodness, there's a lot going on in the world right now. Not least the chaos concerning Iran and the chaos concerning Donald Trump. Everything to do with Donald Trump is chaotic. It has been a crazy weekend for me. Sorry, I've been away doing other things, and that has meant that my output has been somewhat curtailed. Somebody asking in live chat already, and thank you very much for being here, those of you who have joined already. Someone asking, what does ATP stand for? Atypical philosopher. The basis of the name for this channel, ATP Geopolitics, is essentially, I don't know how long ago, it's going to be around 2007. I started going down the pub with some friends, like-minded friends, and a work colleague. We basically, or he really started it, but I was a founding member of the Tippling Philosophers, and we used to go once a month and meet down a pub and have formal philosophy sessions where we would pick a topic and then take that topic to town, whether it be a particular religion, like we might do Taoism, or this aspect of the resurrection in Christianity, or we'd look at morality, or we'd look at happiness, and we'd go to town on that particular subject and we'd debate it, and it'll be semi-formalized, so we'd go around the table with our pints and we'd be talking about someone would actually initially sort of be in charge of a given subject on a given night, and we'll go around the table, give our little opinions to begin with, then they'd give the intro, then we'd have the discussion point, and then we'd have our concluding remarks, and so on and so forth. And we'd treat these topics quite seriously, whilst also being at the pub and being with your mates. And that was a really fulfilling time that we spent doing that, and we still do it, but much more casually and very much more infrequently. But the Tippling Philosophers, I took the name from that meeting group, a bit like the Inklings with was it C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien and others, and I took that on as my blogging name as a Tippling Philosopher, and I used to blog under that moniker in a number of different places, Pathos, and then Only Sky, and then I was writing formally for Only Sky as a media outlet, but also always under the moniker of Atypical Philosopher. And when I have an Atypical Philosopher YouTube channel that deals specifically with philosophy of religion particularly. So when I started up the geopolitics side of that, because I got really completely obsessed with the war in Ukraine, that became Atypical Philosopher, ATP Geopolitics, and that's really the history of the name. So just to let you know, ATP Geopolitics, that's what it stands for. And hopefully when I do these talks, I try and bring in occasionally a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of psychology. I think psychology is really important to understand. I've written extensively on psychology. I'm not a psychologist, but I have a kind of armchair understanding of it. I've edited books on psychology as well, to be honest. So try and give a little soupçon of all these different domains as we talk about geopolitics. And there's lots to talk about tonight. Okay, that's the intro. Good to see you all here. If you're not here in the live video, where are you? What are you doing with your lives? Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. If you haven't all subscribed to the channel, I know some of you drop off due to YouTube weirdly getting rid of people's subscriptions. Then please check that you are subscribed. Thanks to those who have already done so. Now let's talk geopolitics. Where are we going to start? Well, actually, I'm not going to start there. I'm going to go a little bit further back. I've added a few things in since then. Essentially, we have this weird situation where we have the Straits of Hormuz. We have Donald Trump going to war in Iran, with Iran, on the same side as Israel, wanting everyone to come and help him, but also at the same time saying the US doesn't need any help, we're strong enough, but please help us. We need your help, but we don't need your help. And then saying, okay, we've got the Straits of Hormuz closed. Thanks for you guys for nothing. We've closed the Strait of Hormuz. We've opened the Straits of Hormuz. Sorry, we've opened it. The Iranians have been completely defeated. We've won this war. No, we haven't won this war. No, the Straits of Hormuz are closed. No, they're open. No, they're closed. We've won the war. No, we haven't won the war. And so it goes on and on and on. The latest was that they had done a deal. Iran and the US had done a deal. And then the US said, well, Trump said, was this Friday? He said, we have opened the Straits of Hormuz. The Iranian blockade is open. But by the way, we're keeping our naval blockade. So, the US put their own blockade on top of a blockade to try and stop the other blockade. They were opening the Straits of Hormuz by closing the Straits of Hormuz with another blockade. Anyway, that then led to Iran sort of attacking and threatening some ships. And now the US is demanding that a deal is done. And Trump has gone back to threatening Iran with essentially complete and utter destruction, effectively genocidal destruction. And that's where we're at right now. It appears that Iran has refused to go to negotiations on this, and that might lead to the complete destruction of Iran. As Ed Krasenstein said here, this just keeps getting more and more ridiculous. Last week, Trump claimed that the Strait of Hormuz was open for good. Then Iran claimed that they closed the Strait of Hormuz and it's not open. Now Trump is claiming that Iran didn't close the Strait, but the US military did. What is going on here? Absolute insanity. Now, listen to this. This is on Fox News.
I just spoke with President Trump for about 20 minutes, and he told me if Iran does not sign this deal, the whole country is getting blown up. He went on to say that bridges and power plants will be targeted if Iran does not sign this agreement. The president telling me that U.S. Special Envoys Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are heading to Islamabad, Pakistan, for meetings on Tuesday, possibly into Wednesday, to try and get this agreement across the finish line. The president telling Fox News this is a very simple deal, but this is the last chance for the Iranians. The president very clear in our conversation that he is not making the same mistake that President Obama made, giving cash to the Iranians and allowing them to continue a nuclear program. The deal on the table is to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to ensure that the Iranians do not have this highly enriched uranium that is buried deep underground after Operation Midnight Hammer last summer. And again, the president telling Fox News that the entire country will be blown up. Bridges and power plants will be targeted if the Iranians do not sign this agreement.
Groundhog Day, absolutely crazy. And of course, the mention there of the money from Obama going to Iran, of course, that was Iranian frozen assets that were going back to Iran that was Iranian money, and it was like, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and then you'll get this money. Iran did X, Y, and Z, they got that money. Trump really holds that over them, and then it seemed that part of one of the deals recently was the US giving a whole bunch of money to Iran, arguably more than what they were given when Obama was doing it. It's just the hypocrisy is absolutely stunning. And of course, none of this is popular with the American public. NBC News reports that more than half of Americans strongly disapprove of Trump's handling of Iran. 67% disapproves, 33% approve of Trump's handling the war. And that 33% is broadly his popularity at the moment. So basically, if you are still in this position where you are holding on tenuously to support of Donald Trump for one reason or another, then essentially you're the sort of person that when Trump says jump, you say how high. If he goes to war in Iran, you were against the war in Iran, but then Trump went to war with Iran, so you're now for it. These 33% of Americans, it appears, have just divorced themselves from their mental faculties. Just honestly, it's just incredible. Right, okay, so what's going on right now at the moment? Here are the latest updates from the Guardian blog, but it could be taken from anywhere. Whole country is getting blown up if Iran does not accept the deal. Donald Trump told Fox News on Sunday that this was Iran's last chance, as we heard. If Iran does not sign this deal, the whole country is getting blown up. That is genocide. He has threatened genocide again. Like, if you're 33% of Americans and you think and you approve of this approach to the Iran war, then what is going on? Trump also made clear he would not be making the same mistake that Barack Obama did with the 2015 agreement to limit Iran's nuclear capabilities, arguably a much sensible and more effective approach to the Iran situation, Obama's, than Trump's. Obama had conceded that Iran could continue enriching its uranium for 15 years, but only at the level of purity required for civilian nuclear program. The agreement also included limiting Iran's stockpile of uranium to 300 kilograms. Trump withdrew from that agreement in 2018, calling it one of the worst and most one-sided transactions the US has ever entered into. But since then, Iran has grown its stockpile to 400 kilograms of uranium enriched to a 60% uranium-235, a level that can be quickly enriched to weapons grade 90%. So I've said this to you before, but Trump ripping up the deal but not providing a deal in its place is pure stupidity. Rather similar to Trump saying, hey, Medicaid and Medicare need to be scrapped. We need to just rip it all up, and then say, okay, but what are you going to put in its place? Oh, we haven't thought about that. And in fact, they haven't come up with a viable alternative to the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, since 2016, right? And they've had 10 years to work on it, and they still don't have a plan. They seem to be very good at, or Trump seems to be very good at ripping stuff up just because Obama did it. Obama did that, so I'm going to rip it up. Okay, fair enough. If you disagree with that, let's put some sensible alternative in place. Oh, you don't have an alternative. Well, don't rip it up then, because then you've got nothing. And then oh, no, that's what happened. Oh, right. Okay. Iran have just enriched uranium for 10 years now because you ripped up the JCPOA. You said it's the worst deal ever and replaced it with nothing, which is far worse than the worst deal ever. And now Iran have been able to do that which they wouldn't have been able to do had they been under the JCPOA. So, Donald Trump's approach has been insane. So then Trump said, okay, JD Vance is not going to Islamabad for these negotiations. Iran said that the US blockade violates the ceasefire and amounts to a war crime. What else do we have today? White House then said that Vance is going to Islamabad, but then I'm not sure that Iran is going to go. So Iran currently has not made a decision on whether to send a negotiating delegation to Pakistan. What else? Iran then rejects US peace talks. So it looks like they've rejected the peace talks, which means one presumes there will be wide-scale destruction of the entirety of Iran. Just crazy. So, Pakistan Prime Minister spoke with Iran's president, but we don't have, Prime Minister reaffirmed that with the support of friends and partners, Pakistan will remain fully committed to its honest and sincere efforts to advance regional peace and security. Basically, Iran's rejected the peace deal from the United States. I want to there was a great video that actually, it's this one. I'm going to bring this forward. So just this idea that that he's genocidal. This, I think, was at the previous time when he threatened genocide, but this is, civilizational erasure, right? This is Elise Stefanik, who is, anyway, a Republican, jumping through hoops to try and justify Trump's rhetoric. And this video can be applied to exactly what's happened tonight. I'm going to play you this as an example of exactly how that 33% of people justify the completely unjustifiable. So if you are threatening civilizational erasure, if you are a Donald Trump supporter, and you see Trump saying, I am going to wipe out the entire country, like, I don't know how you understand that. If Iran does not sign this deal, the whole country is getting blown up. And then to go on and talk about bridges and power plants, that is genocide. Like, I don't know how you can read that any other way, other than to say, well, it's just bombastic rhetoric. Well, if it's just bombastic rhetoric, then Iran can just ignore it. And there's no point in saying it. But it is also bombastic genocidal rhetoric. That is, without a shadow of doubt, genocidal rhetoric. You can't say, I'm going to murder you to someone. Just walk up to someone and say, I'm going to murder you. Then they complain to the police. You say, well, I was only I'm not joking. I was only trying to get them to give me their wallet, right? Yeah, but okay. But that's murderous rhetoric. Like, unless you were completely joking and obviously it's false, then the other side have to think it's true. So like, in order for this person to give me their wallet, they have to think I'm going to murder them. So in order for Iran to commit to the peace deal, they have to think that they will be completely wiped out by Trump. So the intention is, at the very least, to get Iran to think that you are going to genocide Iran. There is no other way of understanding this unless you're at least Stefanik.
I just think a call for genocide on a college campus and a call for genocide made by the president of the United States, like, they're both bad, right? I mean, that's what I think.
I've condemned genocide across the board. The difference with those university presidents is they couldn't answer the simple, direct question. Just calling for the genocide of Jews. President Trump didn't call for genocide, Jake. You were putting those words in his mouth. He is engaging in diplomatic back and forth.
Your entire civilization will die.
To the table, and we should. No, it's the terrorist regime, Jake. He's targeting the terrorist regime.
His words.
You can continue the decades long. But you're adding genocide. That's not what he's
What is wiping
stated.
out an entire civilization?
In the case of the university.
I really, honestly, I want to explode at people like this. I want to say, look, stop talking. Like, what at least Stefanik here does is, her technique is to keep on talking and not allow Jake Tapper to really be able to say, look, slow down, stop talking, because I need to make this point. Like, is this the definition of genocide? What I would say to her is, please, can you, before you go on, please give me your definition of genocide. I would like you to give me the definition of genocide. Okay. How is then the this is ridiculous. How can the erasure of an entire civilization not be genocide? Like, if the genocide is the complete wiping out of a certain subset of people, then surely any subset of people is a subset of a civilization. So civilizational erasure is going to be even more than it's like genocide plus. Anyway, like, she doesn't have a leg to stand on, but my goodness, she keeps going.
The presidents, I specifically asked them about calling for the genocide of Jews. Again, the president is correct to call out the Iranian terrorist regime, to bring them to the table, to force a ceasefire, and frankly, to free the Middle East from this largest state sponsor of terror that has not only killed American lives, but has targeted Israel and the United States of America, including assassination attempts against our elected officials.
Is calling for wiping out a civilization? Is calling for wiping out an entire civilization
the
bad or
Iranian
good?
terrorist regime.
It annoys me that she just talks over him before, he can't get out his question.
But that's not what he said.
Of course it's bad. That is not what he is calling for. He wasn't calling for genocide.
Your entire civilization
it was targeted
will die.
towards the Iranian terrorist regime.
All right.
It was targeted
Agree
towards
to
the
disagree.
Iranian terrorist regime.
Agree to disagree. The book
CNN. This is typical CNN.
Okay.
If you want to compare the President of the United States to the university presidents who failed to call for the condemnation of calling for the genocide of Jews, that's on you, Jake. The world saw how morally equivocating those university presidents were. Yes, you're the one that is it's not a comparison. So if you want to make that comparison,
you if you have the same standard
CNN,
for somebody.
that is not the comparison. Of course, genocide is bad across the board, Jake. President Trump effectively brought the Iranians to the table. He effectively delivered a ceasefire, and he is going to effectively deliver peace to the Middle East to stop, frankly, the killing of the Iranian terrorist regime, which kills their own people and has created havoc across the Middle East.
We have people who actually supported the strikes against Iran, Iranian Americans and Iranian advocates on the show all the time, and they all were horrified when President Trump called for a genocide of the Iranian, to quote unquote wipe out your entire civilization.
He's not calling for a genocide of the Iranians. It's targeted towards the Iranian terrorist regime. It's been consistent throughout, Jake. And
this is obviously nonsense, right? She's an idiot. He's calling for the wiping out the terrorist regime. Well, then that's not the entire civilization. Those two are not equivalent. They are not synonyms. The entire civilization is more than just the regime. Like, there's this obvious language here. Like I wouldn't let her go until I'd blown her argument out of the water here. Like I just wouldn't move on. No, we're going to have this debate for 20 minutes. I don't care who's on next. I don't care when the adverts are due. We are having this out, and I'm not letting you go until you realize how wrong you are.
Again, that has brought the Iranians to the table. And let's talk about the Iranians have killed tens of thousands of their own people.
Yeah,
so if
horrifying.
you want to prop up the Iranian terrorist regime, that's on you. The president has been very effective in calling out the
That's on you. Like Jake Tapper's propping up the entire Iranian regime. What an idiot Elise Stefanik is here. Anyway, very important. Just going to add this in, slip this in the middle here, but a stunning new report, says Midas Touch, in the Wall Street Journal reveals that military advisors intentionally excluded Donald Trump from the command room during the recent high-stakes operation to extract a downed US airman in Iran because they feared his erratic behavior could jeopardize the mission. According to Wall Street Journal, Trump was in such a volatile state after Iran shot down a US jet that he spent hours screaming at aides in the West Wing, obsessing over the political fallout and invoking Jimmy Carter and the 1979 hostage crisis. Officials made the call to limit his access, only briefing him at meaningful moments instead of giving him a real-time control. Meanwhile, the operation itself nearly fell apart, with aircraft stuck in desert sand and US forces scrambling to avoid Iranian detection. The airman was eventually rescued, but the chaos didn't end there. Just hours later, Trump woke up and fired off his profanity-laced threat online, warning Iran it would be left in living in hell. If that is true, I mean, I don't for a moment doubt that is. That sounds entirely like what the Pentagon should do, military movers and shakers should do, because he is volatile, and B, like, entirely plausible the description of his behavior there. My goodness. Trump has claimed that, just another big long torrent here, that a UK vessel was fired at in the Straits of Hormuz. UK's dismissed claims that Donald Trump that a British vessel was aimed at by the Iranian military, who opened fire on the vessel in the Straits of Hormuz. In his Truth Social post today, the US president warned if Iran refused America's very fair and reasonable peace deal, that the United States is going to knock out every single power plant and every single bridge in Iran. Again, that is genocide, as it says here. I hope they take it, because if they don't, the United States is going to knock out every single power plant and every single bridge in Iran. No more than Mr. Nice Guy. They'll come down fast and they'll come down easy. And if they don't make the deal, it will be my honor to do what has to be done, which should have been done to Iran by other presidents for the last 47 years. It will be my honor to genocide you. It will be my absolute honor. The UK government's disputed this, saying there have been no reports of UK vessels being attacked. We don't recognise this claim. The UK Maritime Organisation, is that MTO, has also not reported any British vessels having claimed to have been attacked by Iran. Trump is just lying through his teeth these days. Now, this is on the back of UK MTO saying that two IRGC boats, opened fire on a tanker about 20 nautical miles east of Oman. This was the other day. So just, when the straits were closed and opened and closed, Iran still is able to do stuff like this. And it doesn't take much for Iran to be able to close the Straits of Hormuz. It's just oftentimes the threat to boats, to vessels, to ships. You threaten a ship, then insurance goes through the roof, right? Anyway, so that becomes prohibitive. And you're like, well, it may only be a 1% chance that they're going to hit me, but I don't know. I can't take that risk because I've got a whole cargo full of oil here. If that goes down, I'm in trouble and I could die, but also I'm losing my job, but also there's an environmental and economic disaster as a result of this. So they hold the cards here, Iran, and it is relatively easy for them to close the Straits of Hormuz. That's the asymmetry that exists. But talking about this idea of lying, like assuming that Trump did lie about the British situation here, let me actually not. We're going to come to that one afterwards. Let's go to the line bit. This is Trump at 8. We're going back a few days here. So the 15th. So this is 4 days ago. Trump at 8 o'clock. The Strait of Hormuz is opened by me. Ships and tankers are easily passing through Hormuz. Exactly 5 hours later, at 1 in the afternoon, the Strait of Hormuz is closed by Trump. It is done for all the countries. No ships are being allowed to pass. It's just such confusion existing. And then you have this. Gas prices are not very high. In fact, you can listen to this.
Well, they're not very high. If you look at what they were supposed to be in order to get rid of a nuclear weapon with the danger that entails. So the gas prices have come down very much over the last 3-4 days. I know, that's what ABC says. But the fact is that if you look at the stock market's up, everything's doing really well.
Stock market goes up because you say it's all over, and then it's not all over, so it goes down again. It's up and down like a yo-yo. There was there's analysis of how much money's been bet on the markets over the course of this war, and you got to get away, or not that you do think this, but one might think that stock market activity equates to economic activity even, or economic health, like a macroeconomic health. People betting on the stock market and making billions of spondoolies off what Trump is doing and saying, whether it's insider trading or just generally people doing that, is not a sign that there's long-term economic health here, or that this is good for the economy. This is an absolute, it is good for certain maybe oil companies that are actually making a bit of a windfall at the moment. We'll come to that in a second. But Trump is lying here. And when he's called out by the reporter, actually they're above $4 a gallon, he says, well, that's what ABC says. I can dismiss that now because I can claim it comes from ABC. So I don't have to deal with the issue that actually gas prices are higher.
And thank goodness we have a president and an administration that believes in American energy dominance, in bringing down prices at the pump. Look at how gas prices decreased over the past year since this president was in office.
Honestly, did she just say that? Did Caroline Levitt stand there, Christian through and through, apparently, where I don't know if she's wearing a cross there. Sometimes there's a claim that she doesn't wear a cross when she completely lies. But actually, I think is that a cross, or is that single? It's probably a cross. She most often wears a cross, right? All right, just standing there saying, look at how Donald Trump's brought down the price of gas, of petrol, since he took over from Biden. You're like, but he hasn't. Like, he really hasn't. That is an obvious lie. You are lying massively there. This is community noted. According to AAAA, the national average for a gallon of gas was $3.13 on January the 23rd, 2025. On April the 15th, 2026, the national average is $4.10, $4.11 basically. That is an increase of 31%, not a decrease. Like, not only has it not gone down, but it's gone up. And not only has it gone up, it's gone up by 31%. Just what? The lies are absolutely incredible here. Just in a bad way. And that 33% of people that I referred to at the beginning, this is one of them. Miller Joy here. I'm voting for Trump because I want low inflation, free speech, low gas and energy prices, low food prices, low crime, no wars, a secure border, and he will put America first like he did last time. That was said on September the 2nd, 2024. Do you know what she said on April the 18th, which was yesterday? This is what Miller Joy said. I didn't vote for lower gas prices, though it would be nice. I voted for brass balls, and I'm perfectly happy. I'm happy I've got my brass balls, she says. But I didn't vote for lower gas prices, even though the internet never lies and there's always a tweet. And a tweet says, I'm voting for Trump because I want low gas and energy prices. You told us you were voting on that. He failed to deliver. And now you tell us you didn't vote for that. That's how this works. Unbelievable. And when he gets called out on this, right? When he gets asked a difficult question, he just kicks people out. This is CBS News' Olivia Rinaldi.
President, a question on Iran. Iranian gunboats fired upon 2 vessels today. President Macron said that.
Thank you very much.
That's a difficult question. I said the Straits of Hormuz are open. Iranian gunboats have fired on ships. How do I answer this? Oh, everyone piss off. Yeah, just get out. Out. Go on, shoot. See ya. What a weak source president. Saudi Foreign Minister, this is but on the April the 14th, Prince Faisal bin Farhan says the era of relying on the United States has ended. How can Trump protect us when he cannot even protect his own country? This is at the time that he lost Italy over the Pope, Saudi Arabia, same time. My goodness. But as I said, some people are doing well out of this war. $30 million an hour. Big oil is reaping huge war windfall from who from? Oh, consumers, an analysis finds. So the world's top 100 oil and gas companies banked more than $30 million every hour in unearned profit in the first month of the US-Israeli war in Iran. According to exclusive analysts for The Guardian, Saudi Aramco, Gazprom, and ExxonMobil are among the biggest beneficiaries of the bonanza, meaning key opponents of climate action continue to prosper. The conflict pushed the price of oil to an average of $100 a barrel in March, leading to an estimated windfall war profits for the month of $23 billion for the companies. Oil and gas supplies will take months to return to pre-war levels, and companies will make $234 billion by the end of the year if the oil prices continue to average $100. They don't care how much is sold or not sold because they just put the prices up accordingly, right? I mean, there is an element of the effectiveness there of prices on the amount of oil, and there will be. Well, I don't know. There appears not to be a hit on any kind of baseline profits. We can't get the oil, so we're just going to whack it up to a massive price. And in fact, maybe we can even still get some of that oil out, but keep the price high and actually, we can profiteer off the back of this crisis. And I'm pretty sure that's what is going to be happening. Who pays for that? Who is funding exorbitant profits and profit margins for these big oil and gas companies? Who's funding that? You and I. We are. You and me, I should say. So Donald Trump again taking a pop at anyone really. Spain. Has anybody looked at how badly this is because Spain went to China. So we had where is it? Yeah, Spain going to China because they hadn't let the Americans use air bases in Spain. They've been anti kind of Israel's positioning on this, anti the American positioning, and Donald Trump has gone to town on them. Trump gets a massive shot from China, says this source. Big victory for Pedro Sanchez, the prime minister. We will cut all trade ties with Spain because they didn't support me against Iran. Said Trump. Exactly after 36 hours, Xi Jinping, the Chinese premier, says Spain is standing on the right side of history. It is a very reasonable country. China stands with Spain. We all work towards world peace and oppose the law of the jungle. Trump and Netanyahu will have heartburn seeing this. Well, Trump will just go and threaten Spain or slag off Spain. Now, I'm not saying that China is the be-all and end-all here, that we should be cozying up with China. What I'm saying is that the United States, qua Donald Trump, has made an insanely bad decision. Well, a whole series of bad decisions. And he is alienating nation states that should be on the side of the United States. You even had Alexander Stubb, the biggest supporter of Trump, saying something along the lines of, what Trump is doing at the moment is not cool. I didn't say it like that, but he is losing friends, Trump, at the moment. He's losing America friends. I mean, no one really is a friend of Trump. No one's really a friend of Trump, but he's losing America their friends at the moment, and this is incredibly challenging for all sorts of reasons. I mean, I could do a whole video on the impact of everything that Trump is doing on the World Cup and tourism numbers, how they're slashing hotel prices in World Cup venue cities where you would normally be throwing those numbers up and up and up. Supply and demand. Huge demand means you can whack your prices up because the supply doesn't meet demand. Okay, supply clearly is meeting demand. In fact, the demand is so poor that they have to lower their prices. Why? Because people aren't coming to the United States of America because they're worried about getting arrested by ICE. They disagree with the politics. they just disagree with the foreign politics particularly, and yeah, so on and so forth. It is, you've got visa issues. I don't think they're even giving proper visas out to the people who need it to come and work and play football and coach and so on and so forth. It's just an absolute mess. But he's losing all sorts of kudos around the world from all of these different states. And here he is attacking Spain. Has anybody looked at how badly the country of Spain is doing? Their financial numbers, despite contributing almost nothing to NATO and their military defense, are absolutely horrendous. Sad to watch. The problem is here, yet again, Trump is lying. He's just lying. Donald Trump took to Truth Social to mock Spain's economy, says DD Geopolitics. While apparently unaware that Spain has been outgrowing the United States for 2 consecutive years, Spain's economy grew 2.8% in 2025, outpacing the US at 2.1% for the full year, with quarter four annualized growth at 1.4%, 0.7% quarter over quarter. In 2024, Spain's economy grew 3.2% to the US's 2.8%. And Spain is one of the best functioning economies in Europe at the moment. It's just madness. The lies are ridiculous. These are just so obviously bad lies. But no one's calling Trump out to his face about this, because either, like, if you do say something controversial, he shuts down the press conference or kicks you out and you're never allowed back in. So he doesn't get that from the press, but I wonder whether he gets it from his aides. No aides going to him and saying, oh, by the way, you wrote that on True Social, but it's probably not him that wrote it. It's probably Stephen Chung that wrote it, or Stephen Miller, or someone else. People aren't going to him and saying, oh, I need to just check you on that because it was just absolutely wrong. No one's got the cojones to do that. Italy wasn't there for us. We won't be there for them, said President Trump on the 16th. So claiming essentially that that's the end of NATO. We will not be there for Italy if Italy is attacked. They weren't there for us when we attacked Iran. Yeah, it's a defensive organization. We've been through this, Donald. Oh, no one's been through that with you, actually. No one has told Donald Trump yet what NATO is. And he still thinks it's the plaything of the United States, where everyone in NATO just has to, by fiat, go and do whatever Donald Trump dictates. And if he's going to go and attack whatever nation it is in the world, all of NATO have to oblige and follow on and help out, including, I guess, attacking Greenland. That's now back on the agenda. Greenland's being discussed again. I mean, goodness me, it's just crazy times. So what's Europe doing? Well, I talked the other day about how I defended Mark Rutte. I don't know if I was technically defending him, but I was explaining his behavior. A lot of people think Mark Rutte is really weak. It's really weak and is not standing up to Trump. And he needs to stand up to Trump and say X, Y, and Z. He's the Secretary General of NATO. Mark Rutte's one job is to keep NATO together. It's not. It's like to take on forward, to do this, to do that, blah, blah, blah. But you can't do that if NATO's disbanded. So his primary job is to keep NATO a thing, right? So when he goes over to the United States and he says all these like really nauseous things on Fox News and CNN and wherever, and he's interviewed, he's like, oh, Trump's done well here, he's done this and done that. You've got to understand that his job is to keep NATO together. And if he criticizes Trump will just pull out of NATO, if not formally, then de facto. So Mark Rutte, he can't do that because he will fail in his primary role. You might not like it. You might want to stand up to Trump. I would love that. I would love it if Mark Rutte stood up and slagged off Trump, criticized him, was really strong against Trump. I would love to see that, but I would also then realize that would be the end of NATO. And that's not good at the moment. And the reason why it's not good at the moment, we understand, as Zelensky said this recently, is that Europe is not ready for an alternative to NATO. You can't just gen up a NATO alternative like that. It takes NATO's 75 years in the making, right? It takes a long time to put these things together, to get the organization together. And then by doing that, you would have the US then as your enemy, because you'll be like, sorry, you're not in the club. We're making our own club. You're not in it anymore. And then the US would be like, well, screw you. I'm going to get together with Russia or whatever. So there are so many things to consider here. But I said to you, guaranteed what Rutte is doing, in my opinion, I would bet a fair whack that he is waiting out to the midterm elections, where Donald Trump will likely be more of a lame duck. Thing is, at the moment, he's ruling by executive order anyway. He's not really referring to Congress at all. So even if he loses Congress, might not make any difference functionally. Nevertheless, I think Mark Rutte is waiting till November so that one, Donald Trump will have more of his power removed in the midterm elections. But two, he needs time to be able to see if something else can be put in place as an alternative to that. And that's where we come to this. So Europe is quietly building a backup plan for NATO without the US, according to the Wall Street Journal again. The framework includes transferring key command roles to Europeans, replacing American military capacity, and expanding France's nuclear umbrella across the continent. The turning point reportedly was Germany finally stopping pretending that Washington is a reliable security guarantor. So Europe is accelerating its NATO fallback plan in case Trump pulls out. That seems to be genuinely what is happening behind the scenes. Here's Timothy Milovnov talking through a Wall Street Journal piece. For decades, Germany blocked every attempt to build European defense without America. Friedrich Merz reversed course after concluding Trump was ready to abandon Ukraine. Germany leads a coalition planning to run NATO without the US. The project has a name, European NATO. Germany, France, the UK, Poland, the Nordics, and Canada are planning to fill US command roles, run air and missile defenses, and secure reinforcement corridors into Poland and the Baltics. The planning runs through side meetings and dinners inside NATO. Pistorius, German defense minister, said, quote, NATO must become more European in order to maintain remain transatlantic. End quote. The plans accelerated after Trump threatened to seize Greenland from NATO ally Denmark. The Iran war standoff gave fresh urgency. Trump threatened to leave NATO this month, calling the move, quote, beyond reconsideration. Congress must approve the withdrawal, though, but the president can pull troops or withhold support as commander-in-chief. So that's what I mean by functionally, he can pull the US out of NATO. Not formally. That needs congressional ratification to do so. But he can just not fulfill all of the requirements and have his troops stationed in for NATO reasons in Europe and beyond. Stubb has called Trump immediately to brief him on Europe's defense plans. Stubb said, quote, the most important thing to do is to do it in a very managed and controllable way instead of the US just quickly pulling out. Finland has the longest border with Russia in Europe. It never abolished the draft. Now, this might also be a way of getting the US out of NATO without annoying Donald Trump. It might annoy American military personnel and the Pentagon because it's strategically not good news for the US. Trump will be like, yeah, fine. By all means, we'll do this. We'll pull out of NATO de facto. So if they can manage that in a controlled way, then if Mark Rutte then, I don't know whether he would just transfer across to a European. I don't know, but I assume that what Mark Rutte doesn't want to do is just annoy Trump to the point that the present NATO is effectively nullified right now at a time when Russia is looking on, and any sign that NATO is done for is an absolute win for Russia. Merz and Macron opened discussions on extending France's nuclear umbrella to cover Germany and other European nations, as we heard. And Trump said, quote, it all began with, if you want to know the truth, Greenland. We want Greenland. They don't want to give it to us. And I said, okay, bye-bye. Radosław Sikorski, Poland's vice premier, posted the video with one word, noted. So this is the work that's going on behind the scenes. Now, Defense Commissioner Kubilius, this is Andreas Kubilius here.
About US President Donald Trump has long been expressing his disappointment with NATO, even threatening to probably leave the alliance. You said last week that a European army could help fix NATO. Is this still just an idea, or you are actually moving forward to it, this European army?
Now, among those resources which they have on the European continent, there are, first of all, so-called strategic enablers, let's say material resources, which we need to replace. And second, they have around 8,000 or 100 American troops on the European continent, which are playing very important backbone role. So if Americans will start to remove those troops from European continent, then we need to look also how to replace them. And that is where it comes to this, let's say, idea or one of the possible solutions that we need to create similar type of military force, European military force, which could play a similar role.
So this is the idea that the EU will have a defense force, a European army. It's long been talked about. It's been dismissed quite often by most people. Someone like Emmanuel Macron, I think, has long wanted this with his vision of what the EU should be. But now there's a lot more appetite for this, given that it would be very useful in the event that the US pulls out of NATO. So you get some kind of European NATO with its own defense force. Now, Kaya Callas here says, quote, Washington is not trying to manage Europe. It's trying to dissolve it. They do not like the European Union. The tactics resemble those used by the EU's adversaries. The answer is not bilateral deals with Trump. It is unity. Because when Europe stands together, it is an equal power. And that is exactly what Washington cannot stand. So there's this growing appetite to just ditch the United States. And this is seen in public opinions as well. And again, it's not to say that it's a good thing to cozy up to China, but when you have China perceived as a greater ally to a nation, to people than the United States, Trump has done something wrong. And I love Sarah Longwell's phrasing here. We are committing superpower suicide in real time. Trump is making China great again. Remarkable shift, says Jostein Hauge. People in every single one of the top US allied countries now believe it's better to depend on China than on the US. The global balance of power is clearly tilting away from the US and toward China. So Canada, Germany, France, UK, share of respondents who say it's either better to depend on China or on the US under Donald Trump. So Donald Trump's US, in Canada, 23%, Germany, 24%, France, 25%, UK, 34%. China in Canada, 57%, 40% Germany, France, 34%, 42% in UK. Fascinating statistics. But that is, I think, prima facie evidence that Donald Trump is expediting the hegemonic destruction of the United States. He's taking it from being the supreme power of the world, and as quickly as he can, he's dismantling the foundation of that. So then you have Macron, Maloney, Merz, and Starmer meeting with a load of other nations virtually to then, without the United States, meet and sort out the Hormuz Strait problem. And there are now sort of rumors of the UK willing to commit some serious naval capability to the project, but I don't know. I presume this is only after some kind of peace deal, of course. Adults in the room, says this source, and it's quite refreshing to see when you consider their political leanings are not the same, but they understand the urgency at hand. It reminds me of the clear up after the petulant toddler has wrecked a play group. So yeah, that's happening. And at the same time, talking about the perception of the US and Trump not being seen as a reliable ally, and the US along with him, and China being seen as more reliable than the US. I've talked so many times about how the UK is kind of caught in the middle outside of the EU, and many are in a shark tank. Now the UK is very formally aligning itself with the EU more and more, which is very interesting because I think you're seeing extra pushback against Keir Starmer from the right-wing press and the Tories and Reform in the UK. They are gunning for Keir Starmer because he's trying to align the UK with the EU. Erasmus, the students' mechanism that allows students in the UK to go to Europe and European students to come to the UK, has now been resurrected. He's considering an EU deal to align Britain with the single market. Talked about that before. But at the same time, you have, so just to let you know what's going on in the UK, if you're not aware, and my British viewers will, of course, be aware of this because it's all over the news at the moment. Peter Mandelson was the former Labour Lord and used to be called the Prince of Darkness, quite a divisive figure even in the Labour world over the past few decades. Like, he lost his job, I think, twice under Tony Blair, but he's seen as full of machinations, right? So he's not everyone's cup of tea, but it was widely understood and agreed that he would be a great pick for the job to deal with Trump because he is that kind of guy. So much so that the Conservatives and Reform, when he was selected to be ambassador to Washington, agreed that he was a good choice. Then it was found that he had connections to the Epstein files that were to Epstein that were way more prevalent, not in a sexual way because he's homosexual, so he wouldn't have been involved in that side of things, but he was sort of insider trading and other such stuff. So then the question is like, okay, now we've found that out. Did the government know this before, and did they put this guy in position? Did the senior leadership, as in Keir Starmer and others, know that he had these connections and know that he, as it turns out now, he failed his vetting? So there's all this clamor in the UK. If you go on Twitter now, it's so divided, but you have so many of these Reform, Conservative, and bots and trolls and all these calling for Keir Starmer to be sacked, right? Because apparently Peter Mandelson failed the vetting process, but was still made ambassador to Washington. Then it's turned out that actually they stopped senior management knowing about the vetting process on purpose, blah, blah, blah. So then someone down here has kind of resigned because he said, you know, this is on me, so on and so forth. And then you got people saying, there's no way that these guys at the top didn't know. And then other people saying, no, they didn't know because look, here's the evidence they didn't know. Anyway, this is now going off on one. My position is, and yeah, I'm going to be biased towards because I want this government to succeed, not only because it's really important just from a non-partisan position at the moment, it's really important the Labour government succeed right now because otherwise total chaos at the time when Ukraine needs it, Iran war, the economy. Like if our Prime Minister was to go now, honestly, that would not serve anyone in the country. That would not be good for the country. Like, so just stop this, just stop it. But then, like, the hypocrisy going on. So it turns out that our Prime Minister, previous one, Boris Johnson, failed vetting himself and was made Prime Minister. So he failed the same vetting. Like, no one's going on about it. It's just the hypocrisy is insane. There's this one. I had a massive long one about. I might go and try and find it actually, because I think it's useful to know. Let's find it here. From my tweets that I've done previously. Yes, this one. Okay. I just want to give you a kind of soupçon of what is going on in the UK because it's really super important. Okay, so you've got there Keir Starmer wanting to get closer to the EU, and I think that is what's underwriting some of the vehement kickback against the government at the moment from people who are like dyed-in-the-wool Brexiteers. So Tories are demanding all the vetting documents on a Mandelson inquiry. In 2022, Keir Starmer himself requested the vetting documents on Boris Johnson's appointment of obvious KGB stooge Evgeny Lebedev, by the way, who's the son of a KGB agent, to the House of Lords. Tories said no. The hypocrisy here stinks. So I know this is a bit of whataboutism, but there is massive hypocrisy. Conveniently, everyone in the country has very short memories about security clearance concerns surrounding Boris Johnson's appointment as Foreign Secretary, himself as Foreign Secretary. So he failed the vetting, as far as I understand. He then ends up being Prime Minister. Meeting with former KGB agent in 2022, it was revealed that Johnson, while serving as Foreign Secretary in 2018, attended a party in Italy hosted by former KGB agent Alexander Lebedev, without officials present. This meeting occurred after a NATO meeting centered on Russia, leading to accusations of a complete disregard for basic national security. Restricted intelligence access during his tenure as Foreign Secretary, 2016 to 18, Downing Street under Theresa May reportedly attempted to withhold sensitive intelligence from Johnson due to concerns within the intelligence community regarding his ability to keep information confidential. And he got made Prime Minister. Security officials were wary of sharing information with him. Use of private communication. Johnson and several ministers were accused of breaching national security guidance by using personal email accounts and phones for government business. Peerage for Evgeny Lebedev, who's the son. Concerns were raised, and owns the independent newspaper, or did at the time, raised regarding Johnson's decision to grant a peerage to Evgeny Lebedev, son of Alexander Lebedev, in 2020, despite security advice. Post office lobbying. The Boris files leaked documents from 2025 indicated that after leaving office, Johnson potentially misused his former contracts for personal financial gain, including lobbying senior Saudi officials and meeting with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, which raised concerns about the blurring of private business and national security. Breach of ethics rules. In 2025, an investigation found that Johnson breached rules regarding the misuse of political contracts after leaving office and failed to cooperate with the investigations. People in this country attack the wrong targets and focus on the scandals that went and forget the scandals that went on before the present government was elected to power, and then gets unwarranted and sinister attacks from a conspiracy on both the left and right. So there's a lot going on here, and you do want things to be done correctly. But I think the Mandelson scandal should have run its course. People's heads have rolled, but obviously the Conservative opposition and Reform opposition want those heads to be Keir Starmer. But if Keir Starmer's head went now, this country would be in absolute chaos, and then support for Ukraine would just be, Ukraine would be thrown to the wolves right now. It just, or at least it would not be the focus. So yeah, anyway, there's a lot of scandal going on in the UK as things are, at the moment. Right. Something I think I did mention previously, in the US, this happened back now on the 10th. So this is going back 8 days, nine days. Breaking news 9 days ago. Trump promises mass pardons for his staff before leaving office. If you are the president of the United States and you say basically to most of your White House staff, by the way, you're all pardoned if they come after you at the end of my tenure, like, you're doing something wrong. You're really doing something wrong. Wall Street Journal reports that in a recent meeting, Trump said he would pardon those within 200 feet of the Oval Office. It's just, incredible. Now, talking about Iran and the oil situation, the other day, major fire broke out one of Australia's 2 remaining oil refineries. A facility processes about 120,000 barrels a day and accounts for roughly 10% of Australia's fuel supply. Australians warn the incident will affect the production of gasoline and jet fuel. I mean, you do wonder, like, that's very, very conveniently timed, isn't it? That's a very careless smoker there. Anyway, going back to Iran more, well, actually not Iran. We're going to go to Cuba now, but looking at the context of Iran and Trump solving all these wars and taking plaudits for solving, he said, now I've solved 10 wars if you include Lebanon and Israel. Like, he solved Lebanon and Israel. What? And then he said, talking about Iran, it's like, you can't take plaudits for stopping the war in Iran, that you can't start a fire, put it out and say, I need a medal for putting out this fire. Woohoo! Yeah, you started it, you idiot. No, but I stopped it. Yeah, no, but you started it. Anyway, so he's talking about, like, how he should deserve the Nobel Peace Prize still. And yet he started a war with Iran. He's threatened genocide. And now he said that they're going to do Cuba next. Like, he keeps saying stuff like this, and I reported this before, but, like, you can't say this stuff.
And very soon, this great strength will also bring about a day, 70 years in waiting. It's called A New Dawn for Cuba. We're going to help them out with Cuba. We have a lot of great Cuban Americans. Not too many people in this audience, I don't think, but you go to Miami, we have people, Cuban Americans, people that were brutally treated, whose families were killed and brutalized. And now watch what happens. Under this.
Watch what happens. Cuba is next. I mean, what does he mean by that? Are they going to do loads of really nice humanitarian things, or they're going to smack the Cubans about? You know, FIFA Peace Prize. Very aptly given to him. Definitely. I can't help but think this man is just so unfit for office. Check this out. So what he's doing here is he's signing an executive order and he's putting his signature on this. And I remember being a kid. What age would I have been? Probably 12, 13, testing out my signature and then saying to my mates, you're trying to create your own signature. It was a big thing back then. I mean, my boy's now 15. Signature. Why would I need to use a pen? But back then it was like, oh yeah, I'll get my signature. Is this a good one? Do you think this is a good one? That was me when I was 12.
Good, that's a good one. Oh, I wanted this one. See that, Joe? You think Biden can do that? He can.
They are clapping him signing a freaking document. That's what they're not clapping the executive order. They're clapping how funny and wonderful and brilliant this guy is for signing a piece of freaking paper.
Good, that's a good one. Oh, I wanted this one. See that, Joe? You think Biden can do that? He can.
Look at him look around. Look at that look on his face. He's not looking around because of the executive orders being brilliant. He's looking around because he's so proud of his signature. It's just like, if you're a Trump supporter, is this what you look up to? Is this your man? Yeah, Donald, you can sign a piece of paper. Woo! Thank you. My best signature yet. That was my best signature yet. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Best signature. Oh, goddamn, I'm good at signatures. I'm really good at signatures. Oh, God. Power I've got as president. I mean, not in the document here, the executive order. I don't even know what it says. But look at this with a nice big Sharpie. I love being president. It's brilliant. I get to sign things all day and make billions. Right. Now, speaking of which, like the insanity of this man. Yeah, was that Joe Rogan? I think that was Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's slagging him off at the moment, though, quite a bit. It did look like Joe Rogan. That is Joe Rogan, isn't it? Might not be. I think it is. That's pretty rich if Joe Rogan's clapping him, because he has been slagging him off quite a lot. Anyway, he has been nuts, Donald Trump, recently. And again, I have to say, when I say Donald Trump is nuts and he's doing this crazy stuff and he's said this and he's written that, it comes always with the caveat that he or the team around him. So has Stephen Chung written this? Has Stephen Miller written this? You know, which aide has done this? There's no way, surely, that in the middle of the night, he's up tweeting constantly. Everyone, run for your lives, says this source. The shit is about to hit the fan. Trump has gone insane. 47 truth posts in under an hour. How can you do 47 truth social posts in an hour when you're supposed to be the president of the United States running the freaking country? 47 truth posts in under an hour. The guy has just lost it. Hopefully he won't accidentally find the red button. Or is that what he's looking at right now? Just, what is this?
Ashaka Shan La La. Ashaka Shan La La.
Anyway, that's one of the 47. So now he's, you know, got The End Is Near. He's got Sinatra singing, whatever. Oh no, please don't say it's not a real. No such post exists on his Truth Social page. I don't know which one that refers to. I think that's going to be this one. Well, that makes sense because that is batshit crazy. So that's been doctored. However, he has been posting inordinate amounts in an hour on Truth Social. It's just that that one isn't true. God, I hate the bloody internet sometimes. So he is posting insane amounts of stuff on Truth Social was supposedly running the country. And someone was saying the other day, like in the middle of the night, he posted some amount of stuff, and you're like, no, he didn't. So then, you know, you're wondering, okay, if he's not posting this, then this is an aide, this is Stephen Chung, whoever it is. Then you're like, well, we are supposed to think that this is coming from the mind of Donald Trump and this is sanctioned by Donald Trump. This is advocated by him. But then if he's not up in the middle of the night saying, yes, post that, yes, post that, then essentially you've got people acting on behalf of the president who aren't the president. And then I think that is quite problematic. Now, I know you have your press team, but usually your press team helps you craft something that you then rubber stamp. Right. So in the old days, by that, I mean, like, you know, 2014 or something, you'd have Obama and his press team craft maybe a tweet or a statement. And you put out this statement and you're like, yeah, okay. But it's mainly been written by his mateys. But he's gone, yeah, that's exactly right. That's cool. Put that out. Right. And then so you understand how it all works. And you trust then whatever's put out by the press team is broadly going to be something that Obama or Bush or whoever completely agree with. But now you have a Donald Trump Truth Social page that is pumping out such a vast amount of content that there is no physical way that he can rubber stamp or green light all of that stuff. And then I just find that really dangerous because then people are speaking on behalf of Trump. And the stuff to do with, you know, those medibeds and all sorts, there's disinformation. That was a doctored video, but Trump himself has produced doctored videos himself. It's just crazy times. Just want to make sure that, this hasn't been. So this is genuine. So the he did post the Frank Sinatra one, of course, here, but this is what Adam Kinzinger saying of another one he posted during this torrent. President just posted this on Truth Social, and then let me just. Oh, bugger. You can't see this. Sorry about that. Oh, all that silence. Did you enjoy that silence? Gave you a chance to think, didn't it?
Sometimes in history.
Can any of you make sense of this one? So this is one I was trying to show you. Let's show you it now. Can you make sense of this?
Sometimes in history, there's this magic moment. Somebody appears on the scene and everything changes.
I am with you.
We've never seen anything like this.
I will fight for you.
This was a man who's met his destiny.
And I will win for
He said he was saved by God in order to make America great again.
His victory was the greatest comeback of all time.
You're watching history, so buckle up.
Sometimes
I don't understand what this is all about. President Trump, please help. A lot of Mexican flags, a lot of religious speak. Then you've got F-35s. You got Mexican people sort of crying, or you've got are they what? Then you got lots of nations being mentioned here. Is that who knows? Who knows what is going on there? But this is the sort of stuff that he is posting. And Adam Kinzinger says this is antichrist material, just nuts. But talking about disinformation and all that's been doctored, be very, very wary. So all you need to know is that for 10 years, the entire MAGA movement has been led by fake foreign Trump supporters. The whole movement is a psyop paid for by Trump and America's enemies. And here there are 4 supposedly real people saying real stuff on social media. And it turns out all these are fake. And this is actually coming from, it's even more than that. This is coming from a New York Times article saying hundreds of fake pro-Trump avatars emerge on social media. The artificial intelligence generated fake influencers have surged on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube in an apparent bid to hook conservative voters. So you got pretty young women there. You've got a black woman in a military uniform that's ticking quite a few boxes. You got a black working class guy there. You got a police officer. You've got an older generation, but all of these boxes are being ticked by these AI generated people who are not real, posting essentially disinformation is it de facto? Is it by default disinformation because these aren't real? They are disinforming you with who they are. As Christopher Webb says, always something. We better wake up to what's happening online. The right isn't just posting anymore. They're scaling influence with AI. AI-generated pro-Trump influencers are surging on social media and are starting to shape what people see and believe. That's the new game. AI personas that sound human, post like humans, and build followings. I know that I know people in my sort of family or my partner's side who post stuff online. I'm like, nah. Just really stuck in these algorithmic vortices that disinform them, and they come out with memes and whatnot that will make you think that that the UK, is just completely broken. That everywhere, around every corner, is a Sharia law court, and you're thinking, oh my God, come on, we're better than this. But no, we are slaves to the algorithm. It appears. Anyway. That said, I want to, just before we look at some more international things, I'll finish off this whole kind of American segment. Jon Ossoff is looking good, right? And some people are touting him for maybe being a presidential candidate for the Democrats. He's just had a rally where he has done a really good job of, I think, saying it right.
I don't know if you saw, but J.D. Vance was in Georgia this week.
He's a Georgian senator, Ossoff.
Don't worry, no one showed up. The stadium was empty. Did you see that? But JD came to UGA to attack the Pope. 2 days after Donald Trump depicted himself as Jesus Christ. The faithless president depicts himself as Christ while he plunges the nation into wars of choice, while he and his family rake in billions from foreign princes.
Going to town on all the right things about lining their own pockets and JD Vance and the Pope. They need to go hard. Although some people, I've seen some analyses that are saying that the Democrats are purposefully being silent at the moment because what Sun Tzu says, you know, never get in the way of your enemy when it's making a mistake. Just let that play out. Let them hang themselves. You don't need to get stuck in, because then it looks like it's you saying all this stuff. If they eat themselves, don't get involved in it. And actually, I think there is a lot to be said about that. But there's also electioneering to start. You've got to start campaigning now, as you've got the midterms rapidly approaching.
While he plunders our health care to cut taxes for the rich. Meanwhile, rent, power, groceries, and health care have all hit all-time highs this year. This year. Ground beef's up 20% since Trump took office. Coffee, 40%. Health premiums through the roof. And remember, while you pay more for everything, the first family's wealth is growing by billions of dollars. Because they're crooks. And everybody knows it.
I really think that this is the approach that should be taken. Like, if you want to have a go at elites, you need to have a go at the elites in power and the way that they are lining their pockets. The audio is slightly lower on this one. This is Ossoff again, building on that point.
How much do you guys know about Jared Kushner? Ivanka's husband. He's on the Saudi payroll for $2 billion. Did you know that? And now he's leading American diplomacy in the Middle East, apparently while at the very same time asking princes and sheikhs across the Arab world to give him billions more. If you're watching this online, don't take my word for it. Look it up for yourself. Can you imagine like a normal sitting U.S. ambassador just hitting up Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for billions of dollars? But he's a Trump, a royal, a princeling. The rules are for us, not for them. And it's not just Jared getting in on the action. A company owned in part by Eric and Don Jr. has been pitching Gulf kingdoms on its drone interceptors during this war. The Financial Times reported, quote, Pete Hegseth's broker looked to buy defense fund before Iran attack. I tell you what, never before have we seen so little effort to hide so much corruption. The Mar-a-Lago mafia has taken American corruption to spectacular new heights.
Things like Mar-a-Lago mafia, that kind of approach. So I think like pulling up Trump and his family on their grifting and corruption is a really wise approach to take. Anyway, there are loads of quotes, there are loads of segments from his rally that I think are really worth looking at. Now, I don't know, there's probably been news on this already, but just to let you know, there's a snap election that's been called in Bulgaria, and Bulgaria is an incredibly important place for support for Ukraine. They are building lots of Soviet era manufacturing lots of ammunition and equipment for Ukraine that's been going there for the last 4 years. A snap election there is not good news at the moment, because it looks like the left conservative alliance of former President Rumen Radev has won a parliamentary election. He advocates, among other things, for the end to Ukraine aid and peace with Russia. So on the one hand, you've got success in Hungary, and now you've got Bulgaria. Pro-Russians have reportedly gained control of the Bulgarian parliament in today's elections there, which is not good news. This came out tonight, according to an exit poll by public broadcaster BTV. The party of pro-Russian ex-president Roman Radev, Progressive Bulgaria, is winning with over 38% of the vote. So that is potentially not good news. There might well have been more information on that out since then. I'm not 100% sure. Let's just quickly, no, Can't find anything at the moment, but this is, I think, going to be a bit of a kick in the teeth if that election goes away. It's looking like it is. Yeah, 56 minutes ago, pro-Russian party associated with Rumen Radov has won Bulgaria's snap parliamentary election with over 38%, according to exit polls. Okay. Radov has taken Eurosceptic positions, called Crimea Russian, and opposed military support for Ukraine. This is not good news in terms of European unity and support for Ukraine. Really a shame there. Now, in terms of what's happened with Peter Magyar's win and Tisha's win in Hungary the other day, final results have actually gone more in favor of Peter Magyar. They wins 70.85% and 141 of 199 seats. So it was 138. Now they've got another 3 seats in looking at like close elections and whatnot, recounts, I don't know. But they've ended up doing even better than they had previously thought they'd done. So that's really good news for Tisha. But yeah, I am very worried about Bulgaria. I have to say, Bulgaria is very, very important for Ukraine. It's not good news. So Orban and Fidesz are currently running their shredders hot, says Tendar here. Peter Magyar has said, we are receiving increasing reports of large-scale document destruction from various ministries, affiliated institutions, and companies close to Fidesz. Indeed, Shabadon Magyarul says, this is getting ridiculous. What are the Hungarian authorities doing? It's industrial-scale evidence destruction committed by the Orban regime. A massive amount of shredded documents in the container at the MTV building. They are literally shredding documents. I mean, the rumors were that Peter Shihata, the foreign minister, was holed in an office shredding documents. And then you wonder whether they can ever do, decent enough investigations into these people. It's really sad. Right. What do we have here? War Translator says, Orban says Brussels passed word Ukraine is ready to restart oil via the Druzhba pipeline on Monday if Hungary lifts its block on the EU loan worth 90 billion euros. No oil, no money. And once flows resume, they will drop the blockade, adding the loan disbursement brings no burden or obligation to Hungary. Jakub Janowski from Oryx says, I assume that Ukraine will start the oil flow maybe at a reduced volume and give Hungary a number of days to remove its veto, shutting down the pipeline if the veto isn't removed. So there's a bit of leverage there going on from both sides, but hopefully that 90 billion euros will be relieved. And just let's hope that Bulgaria doesn't then go, oh no, we're gonna join Fico. And Fico said he's not going to block that, but he will continue to block the sanctions package if the Druzhba pipeline remains closed. But if it is opened, then hopefully Fico will allow the sanctions to go through as well. Now, he has said that Lithuania and Latvia are going to block airspace for his plane to pass over them on the way to the May the 9th Victory Day celebrations in Moscow, where Robert Fico is going to go and hang out with his best bud, Vladimir Putin. Talking about friends of Putin, Deputy Prime Minister of Italy, Matteo Salvini, who's a big pro-Russian, anti-Ukrainian guy. So remember, you've got a coalition of 3 parties in a right-wing populist government in Italy, the Brothers of Italy, which is Giorgia Meloni's party. She has ended up being pro-European and pro-Ukrainian, which has been a surprise to some. Then you've got Forza Italia, formerly under Berlusconi before he died, and then Matteo Salvini's La Liga. And Salvini is just very, very pro-Russia. He's the deputy prime minister. So you've got Meloni being pro-Ukraine, her deputy being pro-Russia. And here, Matteo Salvini is calling for Italy and Europe to go back to buying oil and gas from Russia, like the US does, arguing, quote, we are not at war with Russia. La Stampa reported him saying, quote, Russian gas is necessary for us. We are not at war with Moscow, during a press conference in Milan. Ugh. Right, let's go on to Canada, to my Canadian friends. Yeah, there's my Blue Jays cap there for you. I'll just put it down here. I won't put it on top of my headset, on top of my other cap. Canadian visits to the US are down 35%, dealing a massive sustained economic blow to the US economy that shows no sign of reversing in 2026. This is to do with the tourist issue that I talked about previously. But when you, as a president, insult Canada, threaten to take it on as a 51st state of America, this is what happens. You start a trade war with your closest ally and neighbor. This is what happens. In my 37 years in the travel industry, I've never seen anything like what the Canadians have pulled off, is a quote from this article by Forbes. Bad news, because the Canadians routinely go, what they call the snow leopards? No, the snow. I asked this before. I keep forgetting what the Canadians called that go down to Florida for the winter period. What they called the snow somethings. Anyway, they routinely go. They buy property down in Florida, the Canadians, and it's a really common thing. Snowbirds. Yes, thank you. Thanks for that. So a lot of snowbirds didn't go. Yeah. They haven't gone. But they've also not bought up property. So there's this continued kind of regurgitation of property in Florida that snowbirds, Canadian snowbirds, buy, and that's not been happening. So real problem there. Alexander Stubb, the Finnish president, went to Canada, went to Ottawa here, and was seen playing ice hockey. So we know that when Mark Carney was a younger man, he played ice hockey. But actually, Stubb, I think, was going to try. Was he not going to be a professional ice hockey player and then ditched it in eventually and then ended up getting into politics? So this guy, he's a really sporty guy. Alexander Stubb comes from a sporting family. This is really cool. So he's on the ice. Both these two were on the ice, like flicking around the puck, just looking pretty cool. Mark and I message each other pretty much every day, whether about hockey, the Blue Jays, but mostly about NATO and trying to save the world. That's what Finnish President Alexander Stubb has said. Wow, I love that. And so anyway, you've got this. I think there's another one. Yeah, here it is. Let's look at this video of Stubb and.
How are you? We share a lot, Canada and Finland. We share fundamental values, ice hockey.
Mark and I, we message each other pretty much every day. It's really good to be here.
Or last year. Finally! Oh! Do you see that, Alex? World's slowest wraparound. Charge!
So anyway, it's good PR. Good PR there. Now, what has happened? Not only is Canada getting closer to European allies, and we're going to hear this in a second, but Alexander Stubb has advocated for Canada to join the EU. There's this growing appetite for this, both sides of the Atlantic. And it just goes to show, yet again, if the United States pushes these countries away, these countries will go like Spain getting towards China, Canada getting closer to Europe, filling that economic vacuum with other sources necessarily. Again, that is not long-term going to be to the benefit of the United States. Honestly, Donald Trump is successfully shooting the United States in the foot time after time after time. What has also happened is, well, over the course of since Mark Carney was voted in as prime minister, he has been riding high in the polls. Donald Trump's anti-Canadian stance has hurt Pierre Poilievre, the conservative leader there. And Mark Carney, not only is he a technocrat, so he's an expert, and he's calm, collected, and he's competent, right? Pretty much. He's doing all the right things to keep his polls really high. And since the election, you have had 5 defections from the Conservatives to the Liberals, Mark Carney's Liberals, and you've had 3. So the other day, there were these elections that took place, and you had 3 by-elections, like special elections that took place because, I don't know, for whatever reason. And all 3 went to the Liberals, and they now have a Liberal majority as a result of those 2 things in Parliament. So it is good times. These are good times for Mark Carney and the Liberals in Canada at the moment. But an awful lot of that needs to be credited to Donald Trump being so anti-Canadian. Mark Carney and the Liberals have secured a majority government in Canada. Decisive win came over after a trio of pivotal by-elections, with Dr. Danielle Martin's commanding victory in University Rosedale pushing the Liberals to 772 seats needed for a majority in the 343-seat House. It comes just after Viktor Orban was ousted as well. So, good news there. And then you've got Alexander Stubb here talking about Canada.
I think Canada, in terms of
what am I need to actually have this on the screen rather than my big face.
I think Canada, in terms of its hold, composure, its value base, is so close to the European Union that the least we can do is to forge a really close strategic partnership. And what that then leads to in the end with the EU, which started as 6, ended up with 28, then after Brexit with 27. I don't know. I can envisage a much larger EU. Whether Canada is a part of it or not is up to Canada to decide.
But you can tell he really wants the UK back in. So then you've had Carney, this then more recently, this is today, just saying, look, we need to look after ourselves. Listen to his rhetoric here.
And the days that young Canadians have known all their lives haven't been that good. Their lifetimes have been marked by a series of shocks and crises from abroad. The Iraq War, the global financial crisis, COVID, and now this. We have to take care of ourselves because we can't rely on one foreign partner. We can't control the disruption coming from our neighbors.
It's calling out the disruption, the foreign partner of the United States here in very, very explicit fashion.
Can't bet our future on the hope that it will suddenly stop, but we can control what happens here. We can build a stronger country that can withstand disruptions from abroad, that creates good jobs here at home, that's a leader in this new world with a vast network of reliable allies. That's the Canada Strong plan we're putting into action. And
so that's Canada. Now let's go to Argentina. Some interesting situations going on in Argentina. Like Javier Milei is the anarcho-capitalist who is a big fan of Donald Trump, big fan of Netanyahu as well. Really big supporter, therefore, one would imagine, of the war efforts in Iran. He had his country bailed out, if you remember, and part of this is to do with the strategizing from the Americans about China. So Argentina, he got in saying, right, we've had terrible inflation, economic issues for Argentina on the back of left-wing governments and whatnot. I'm going to take it over as this anarcho-capitalist. I'm going to take a chainsaw, if you remember, to the public sector. I'm going to, stack loads of people. We're going to get all the costs down, blah, 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 blah. And people had a lot of hope in what he was going to do, particularly on the right. So he had a lot of support from Elon Musk saying days of prosperity are ahead for Argentina and from the US. And then you had these elections that were the parliamentary elections, not Javier Milei's, but the Senate elections and whatnot, I think. And the US said, if you vote for Javier Milei, it was bribery. So if you vote for Milei, and it was thought that Milei was going to lose the parliamentary elections then, or whichever ones they were. The US came along and said, we'll give $20 billion, then $40 billion in monetary assistance to Argentina if you vote for Milei. And then Milei got voted in. And I was like, that is election interference. And it seems like the US can just do that willy-nilly, explicitly these days, and no one bats an eyelid. So the question is, why, at the time, is why are you doing this, the United States? And part of it looked like it was sorting out our mates from an ideological point of view, like Javier Milei's big friend of the Trump administration. They, CPAC and all these kind of things. They're there. Elon Musk had the chainsaw and all that kind of stuff. You're thinking, okay, these are birds of a feather. They're all matey. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But actually, I think there's probably that to a degree, but it's a lot to do with the US strategy, which is China is inching its way into South America. And then you understand that the Monroe Doctrine of the US controlling the whole of the North and South America, the continent of North America and South America and Greenland. Like if you think, right, the US wants to control all of that, then it doesn't want China. It's splitting up the world. It's like Europe can be had by, I don't know, Russia or China, don't really care, whatever. You guys fight over Europe. Ukraine, don't give them monkeys. Africa, who cares? We want this area, and then we'll try and get like rare earth metals and stuff from elsewhere. But if China comes in and tries to have a piece of South America, we are going to fight that off. And so China were getting involved, and they were going to sell some jets to Argentina, and they were going to loan Argentina money. And so the US, with the $40 billion, were like, take our money, not the Chinese money. So there's a bit of strategy going on there. And also those 40 odd F-16s that were going to go from Denmark and other, or I can't remember how many, bunch of F-16s going from Denmark to Ukraine. The US demanded that they couldn't go to Ukraine, and so Ukraine should have a whole bunch of F-16s now, and they don't, because the US said that they need to go to Argentina. So the US dictated to Denmark that the F-16s went to Argentina so that Argentina didn't buy Chinese jets, so that China couldn't get a foothold on the Southern American continent. But this was also problematic because the US was funding Argentinian farmers who were producing soybeans for the Chinese when the Chinese didn't want to buy American soybeans because they started a trade war. So Trump starts a trade war with China. China stops buying the soybeans. So then Trump gives $40 billion to help fund Argentinian soybean farmers. So the American soybean farmers are like, hang on, so there's all sorts of other dimensions to this money that went to Argentina. But the end result is that Argentina really needed this money as well, because Javier Milei's form of capitalism hasn't worked. And lots of people really wanted it to work who sat on the right, who are like, yeah, small government, we hate low tax, we hate high tax, big government, we want small government, low tax, we would like strip out all welfare, blah, 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 blah. The issue is that it doesn't seem to work. And Argentina is in a lot of trouble. I just want to point out this quote, though, from a rally he was at, which I think is so disgusting. So Derek Taylor says, Javier Milei, the cartoonishly stupid Argentinian Trump, who continues to be hailed as an economic genius, says, quote, a company pollutes the river. And where's the harm? They can pollute all they want. There's enough water. We'll worry about it when there's a shortage. That's his approach to running a government. Yeah, don't care if you pollute the river. There's enough water. We got enough water. Pollute the river. What's the harm? Well, that's Javier Milei for you. Anyway, Argentina's debt to the IMF has now climbed about 36% over the past year to roughly $57 billion, largely due to a new $20 billion. The new disbursement has increased Argentina's total exposure, making it the IMF's largest borrower. And I think the IMF has just given them another bunch of money on top of that because they're completely screwed. On the 18th, so that was before. Then later, yesterday, the IMF is now in total panic mode with the unraveling of Milei. So they're forking out more money in an attempt to stem the rising inflation, unemployment, and popular anger. It's truly remarkable the extent to which the IMF has devastated Argentina's economy and society. So in an attempt to steer Argentina in this right-wing, low-tax, small government direction, the IMF, the US, and Milei himself have created an even worse economic situation. But it's amazing. I saw an interview of a young woman, so she looked maybe young 20s, who was a Milei fan, just saying, do you know what? She said, I can't afford X, Y, and Z. It was like, inflation is killing me, that type of thing. She was like, inflation has not been solved, i.e. this is terrible at the moment. But she said, but I would either vote Milei or I'd leave the country rather than vote for the other side. So, like, it's got worse. And your response is not to blame the person who has navigated it to a worse position. You would vote for him again rather than vote for the other side. It's like the people at the Trump rally those years ago who had the T-shirts, two of them. I'd rather vote for the Ruskies than the Democrats. So you'd rather vote for the Russians. You'd rather leave the country of Argentina as it falls apart than blame the person who's precipitating it falling apart. I don't know. It's just crazy. As we predicted, says Patrick Henningsen, Milei has destroyed the Argentina economy. He is a fraudster and a crypto Ponzi scammer and best friend of Elon Musk. So Elon Musk, do I have it here? No, I don't. There's a prosperity. So Elon Musk said when Milei was elected, so now get ready for prosperity. And someone rightfully today is like, you want to show this to there's always a tweet, isn't there? You want to show this to Musk now because there is not the prosperity that Musk was promising. And I just want to show you this video as well because there's nothing to listen to. Just look at Milei. We know that Milei is a big fan of Trump, big fan of Netanyahu. Milei looks like a child here, like a buffoon as well, who is just slavishly salivating over Netanyahu as he walks along with him, talks how they got the same color tie on and stuff, or whatever he is. Like, look at him. I'm sorry, but he is a joke of a politician, Milei. Just look at the way his hands are, how excited he is. You can't even, like, his arms almost rigid with excitement at being with Benjamin Netanyahu here. As he walks along with him, look, turning, look, look, and look at my tie. Look, my tie is the same color as your tie. Oh, look, oh, yeah, yes. Oh, should we go to a hotel and make sweet love? Oh, yes, please. Oh, no. Yeah, thumbs up. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I love you. Can we kiss? No? Okay, we'll move on. Oh, yeah, okay. Just, I don't know. It's all rather sickening. But there you go. That's Javier Milei for you. What else am I going to? Oh yeah. So just randomly, I could have had this earlier. Kind of move. Just going to link this to this idea. Actually, no. That's it. I was going to link this to the next two things. So let's go to Palantir. I've played you previously. I mean, do I need to play you again? The CEO from Palantir, Karp, talking about being happy to help kill people. Palantir, Karp. Okay, I will show you this again just because I find it absolutely the most stunning video ever. It's got to be here. I will find it. So Palantir is this Peter Thiel company that is winning all the contracts in the United States, contracts for all of the data, ICE, all this kind of stuff, but also winning contracts, potentially winning contracts across the EU, but certainly winning contracts right across the UK at the moment. And it is really disturbing because there seems to be no entity that is standing up to Palantir, apart from potentially the EU is like the only hope. And, not to be just too ideologically, championing of the EU, but I just have to, I have to say that I do hope that the EU is able to stand up to big tech, because as I've talked to you before, the US national security strategy, it appears to just be the marketing strategy for American big tech. And there's no bigger player in that domain than Palantir at the moment. I can't find this video. Where are you, Karp, Palantir, man at it's not Palantir, right? I'm going to find this for you if it's the last thing I do, because it's too good not to see. There are so many of his weird interviews and whatnot, but I can't find this particular one. Oh well. If anyone can find for me and link it in the live chat, the CEO of Palantir at that Zoom meeting where he's glorifying in killing people, which is what Palantir helps to do, then I would be really appreciative. As I can't find it. Damn it. Anyway, I'm going to now go through some Palantir stuff with you, because I think the guy, Alex Karp, has written a book on the technological republic. So you've heard me talk a lot previously about how the big tech people are kind of anti-democratic, that they are, here it is, that they are techno-fascists. And they, I mean, I think this is what was arguably behind Greenland and wanting Greenland, is that there are some entities that have been funded by some of these people. This is Alex Karp Palantir here, who want to build a technocracy, a technate in Greenland, where you have these cities whereby you're not like a citizen of a country, but you're contracted to a city, if you like. And they want to play around with Greenland being this place, as well as rare earth metals there and stuff. So I'm super worried about the rise of big tech in the world at the moment, that they are becoming more powerful than nation states. I think the UK at the moment is weak as we're out the EU, and Palantir is cleaning up with contracts where they seem to have, they started weaseling their way in with the previous government, and then they've got contracts with the NHS right across British government, and it is a problem. And my biggest criticism of Labour is that they are not standing up to Palantir, I do really worry. So this is Alex Karp.
I'll just give a vulgar version here. You know, our clients realize the choices suck, basically, and they've tried a lot of stuff. It hasn't worked. And then we're in so many verticals. Let's just say we're in vertical 252, and we dominate for one customer.
That's the wrong one. Damn it. So that is not the one where he is talking. That is that meeting. Anyway, he talks about how hopefully you guys are on board. Here it is.
And on occasion kill them. Palantir is here to disrupt, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies, and on occasion kill them.
There's a rapid...
That's not the full one. I really would like the full one of that. So basically, he's talking about how we help kill people, and I hope you're on board for it. And that whole section of that meeting is just so super scary, because he seems like gleefully up for killing people for the United States, essentially, and for that ideology. Anyway, he's written this book. Elliot Higgins says extremely normal and fine for a company to put this in a public statement. So then the company Palantir is then put out, as it says here, Palantir put out the most cartoonishly evil statement possible. They're so arrogant and self-confident they don't seem to believe their fascistic plans can be opposed. We must get rid of Palantir altogether. So they said, you know, because we keep getting asked, they said, we're going to put out this statement. In fact, I'll read it as a whole, because we get asked a lot. The Technological Republic in brief. So this is his book that Karp has written. Silicon Valley owes a moral debt to the country that made its rise possible. The engineering elite of Silicon Valley has an affirmative obligation to participate in the defense of the nation. We must rebel against the tyranny of the apps. Is the iPhone our greatest creative, if not crowning achievement as a civilization? The object has changed our lives, but it may also now be limiting and constraining our sense of the possible. Free email is not enough. The decadence of the culture or civilization, and indeed its ruling class, will be forgiven only if that culture is capable of delivering economic growth and security for the public. The limits of soft power, of soaring rhetoric alone have been exposed. The ability of free and democratic societies to prevail requires something more than moral appeal. It requires hard power, and hard power in this century will be built on software. The question is not whether AI weapons will be built, it is who will build them and for what purpose. Our adversaries will not pause to indulge in theatrical debates about the merits of developing technologies with critical military and national security applications. They will proceed. So the approach here is saying, look, our enemies are going to create the most horrible AI-informed weapons, so we better do it as well. It's not like, let's not question whether this thing is right and you know, with what the morality is. It's like we have, and I don't know, it's an interesting moral discussion to have about this. Like, you know, nuclear weapons are horrible and terrible, but let's get there first before our enemies do, because then we can use them to our advantage type thing. So you can build up a case for this, and this is his case. National service should be a universal duty. We should, as a society, seriously consider moving away from an all-volunteer force and only fight the next war if everyone shares in the risk and the cost. Well, I'd like to see you go and join up then as well, Carp. If a US Marine asks for a better rifle, we should build it, and the same goes for software. We should, as a country, be capable of continuing the debate about the appropriateness of military action abroad while remaining unflinching in our commitment to those we have asked to step into harm's way. Public servants need not be our priests. Any business that compensated its employees in a way that the federal government compensates public servants would struggle to survive. We should show a far more grace towards those who have subjected themselves to public life. The eradication of any space for forgiveness, a jettisoning off of any tolerance for the complexities and contradictions of the human psyche may leave us with a cast of characters at the helm we will grow to regret. Interesting. The psychologization of modern politics is leading us astray. Those who look at the political arena to nourish their soul and sense of self, who rely heavily on their internal life, finding expression in people they may never meet, will be left disappointed. Our society has grown too eager to hasten and is often gleeful at the demise of its enemies. The vanquishing of an opponent is a moment to pause, not rejoice. Now, that's really interesting because he said exactly the opposite to this in what you just saw in that meeting, like gleefully talking about like rejoicing in the death of the enemies. Literally, he's contradicted himself. The atomic age is ending. The age of deterrence, the atomic age is ending, and a new era of deterrence built on AI is set to begin. No other country in the history of the world has advanced progressive values more than this one. The United States is far from perfect, but it's easy to forget how much more opportunity exists in this country for those who are not hereditary elites than in any other nation on the planet. I would actually disagree with that quite fundamentally. American power has made possible an extraordinarily long peace. Too many have forgotten or perhaps take for granted that nearly a century of some version of peace has prevailed in the world without a great power military conflict. At least 3 generations, billions of people and their children and now grandchildren have never known a world war. The post-war neutering of Germany and Japan must be undone. The defanging of Germany was an overcorrection for which Europe is now paying a heavy price. A similar and highly theatrical commitment to Japanese pacifism will, if maintained, also threaten to shift the power balance in Asia. Now, this is all very interesting because I'd agree with this, but on the one hand, he's saying America's the greatest and we've got to keep America at the top, without realizing that the tooling up of Germany and Japan is actually arguably at the expense of the US hegemonic power. Anyway, so on and so forth, etc., etc., etc. I mean, just be really, really wary of this guy. Palantir put out a 22-point summary of their CEO's book, The Technological Republic. It's pitched as a defense of the West. But if you read through the VDA framework, verification, deliberation, accountability, what it's actually doing looks rather different, says Elliot Higgins. And I've interviewed Elliot on part of his thinking in this whole verification, deliberation, accountability framework. I've set out the framework I'm using here in an earlier thread on VDA, the arc of democracy and a moral epistemic stacks idea. What follows applies that framework to the Palantir document directly. And I don't know whether to go through all this because you might have to go through the whole kind of framework here. But the end result, the end conclusion is that we are at a point in time where, yeah, there are these big wars going on in the world, Iran and Ukraine. But if you look back at a lot of my lives like this, I labor the point that we are at a war with technology where we need to be able to hold technology to account, because if we do not do that, it will become like if you watch the Alien films and Alien Earth, the new series, the world is split into 5 corporations essentially rather than nation states, and they control that is what people like Peter Thiel, who is the guy behind Palantir. Yeah, Alex Karp is the CEO, but Peter Thiel is the main guy. These people they want to run us in states that are technates and not democracies. They don't want us to have the power of the vote and self-determination. They think technological companies should be, that's techno-fascism. That's what they advocate. Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, all these sort of people, I think are really problematic. You can then throw in Sam Altman and Mark Zuckerberg and Tim Cook, and they won't all be exactly the same kind of ideological, have the same ideological bent, but these are hugely powerful people, David Sachs, who I think are controlling the American government, controlling the foreign policy of the American government and pulling the strings. And Elliot Higgins, looks at this from a very sort of academic point of view, but it is worth doing. I think we need to pull apart this approach from all sorts of different angles. And as I keep saying, the only entity that appears to be willing or maybe even able to stand up to big tech is the European Union. And here's just a small example, right? Okay, this is Apple phones and USB-C. So, for example, they said to Apple, you need to have USB-C sockets on the bottom of iPhones so that it's universal, so people don't have to pay extra money to buy an Apple lead, and it's easier for the consumer, and it's universal. And Apple put up a fight, but the EU won that one. What they're doing is they're not caring so much about as Apple making more and more money in having their own cable and therefore being able to charge extra and blah, blah, blah. They're looking after the consumer. Now, in China, with big tech in China is kind of doing whatever the state wants. So there's a merging of the big tech and the Chinese state, but from the top down, I would argue. So you've got like the CCP, and then you've got the Chinese Communist Party, and Xi Jinping and whoever. But you've got the architecture of the state there, and then using tech to the agenda of the state. Whereas in the United States, I think it's the other way around, where you've got big tech subsuming the state from below, and then getting the state to do what it wants. So the power there rests with big tech, where the power of big tech in China is still, I think, beholden to the state actor. And then the European Union is this third idea, which is, well, what about the consumer here? What about the citizen here? So Europe will require all mobile phones to be sold with user replaceable and longer lasting batteries starting 2027. So you can keep a phone for longer. You don't have to keep replacing it. So obviously big companies are going to be like, no, we want them to keep buying our stuff. Like Apple famously slows down its interface, doesn't it? I'm not an Apple user, but I'm sure like on older phones, they get slower and slower by design. They don't need to, but they make them get slower and slower by design. So you end up giving up on it and saying, oh, I need a new phone, even though it could last another good few years or whatever. Europe will require all mobile phones to be sold with longer lasting replaceable batteries. The regulation demands the availability of spare parts and manuals for 10 years to curb planned obsolescence. So that's what it's talking about with iPhone, planned obsolescence. Okay, that's one example here. But we can talk about all the ways that the EU at the moment is trying to develop payments alternatives to Visa and MasterCard and PayPal and Apple Pay and Google Pay. They're trying to do European ones. They're trying to replace things like Microsoft and Teams and Google with either open source or European versions as well. But they're always thinking on, but the regulation in the EU is more often not about protecting consumers. Like the working time directive is to make sure that people aren't working their socks off without protection, so that corporations can't just grind their employees into the ground, like happens in the United States, where people seem to have competitions of who can work the longest hours, as if that's that kind of status. Whereas in Europe, it's like, no, 37.5 hours. And then after that, you got overtime. And I know you can opt out and there are all these other regulations. But the idea is that we want to protect our workers. That's what we're here for. We are the people. We the people. It's kind of how the US should be, right? As we understand it from the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and whatnot. But it seems like the people in the United States and arguably many places around the world now, UK, where Palantir is getting a bigger and bigger presence, we end up being slaves to the algorithm and slaves to big tech. And if we don't stand up to it, then we're done for, like, essentially. So yeah, there are these big wars going on around the world, but there's another kind of war, and it's the war of the citizen against technology, big technology, and the oligarchs behind these big tech firms, who are now the richest people in the world. And I really do worry about this. So anyway, you know, I could have gone. I could have spent way more time on Palantir and Alex Karp and his vision for his book. But you get the point, is that these are worrying times, I think, for looking after ourselves. And then, you know, then we've got the environment. You got Javier Milei saying, hey, it doesn't matter if you pollute the environment, we've got more of it. Well, there's a great saying. I forget who said it. I had not heard of the person who said it. The saying was like, the conclusion was something like, you can't eat money. You know, when all the fish have gone, and when all the forests are gone, when all the cows are gone, when all the fields are gone, you can't eat money. You know, we need to be careful. We need to look after our planet. We need to look after ourselves. And I'm not sure that big tech have our best interests at heart. I'm sure Donald Trump doesn't. And we hope that the governments that we vote in do. But some of these populist governments, they don't care. I mean, populism seems to be, to me, ripe, fertile ground for corruption. I like sensible governments that look after, you know, act on behalf of us, the people. Anyway, here endeth the lesson. Right. That's enough time for me. I've been speaking way too long. Can I just say thank you very much to Niels Clement, who's gifted 10 ATP Geopolitics memberships. Really appreciate your support there. Thank you to Kevin Forst, who is such a strong supporter of the channel, as is Zeb Carter. Thank you for your ATP Geopolitics memberships. I'm going to do a members recording, I think, Tuesday night now. We're going to have a glass of wine and we're just going to have a chat about whatever you want to, just for the members. It's not a news one, so you're not missing out on news. It's not behind a paywall, but I just need to thank my members. And a massive thanks here to Dry Chaff. Was building up to start driving stuff to Ukraine myself, but in early 2025 stuff happened, which means I'm duty bound at home. All the best for your forthcoming venture. Thank you for supporting that. Really do appreciate that. We are gearing up. We're putting things in place. We're getting ready for our journey to Ukraine at some point in the near distant future. Lots of organizations taking a lot. We seem to be collecting cars. Plenty to do it. Thank you, Dry Chaff, for that. It really is very, very generous of you. And all of you, Niels Clement, really generous support for the channel there, as with Kevin and Zeb as well. So thank you, guys. Take care, everybody. That's going to be enough from me. I didn't realize how long I've been wittering on. Really, really appreciate you. I don't know if this is serious or tongue-in-cheek. D. Martin says, awful podcast of globalists. Bye. If this is a true comment, right? Is this a true comment? I love. Please don't delete comments like this. This is brilliant. We need to discuss stuff. I love the idea that globalism is bad. Like working together as international brothers and sisters in this world. Like, what does globalism mean to you? How are you defining globalists, and why is it bad? Do you prefer oligarchs? Do you want to live in a world of oligarchs controlling you algorithmically and with the power of their money? Maybe that's your understanding of globalists. Well, if that's your understanding of globalists, big oligarchs working together, economic elites, then yeah, I'm against that too. But if globalism is just international unions of countries like the EU working together for the benefit of the people, then that's politics writ large across and cooperating across a global landscape. I mean, what's not to like about that? So I just it's really easy for people to go, globalism's really bad. Like, okay, right. Well done for a nice soundbite. And I'm sure you make yourself feel really good. But what do you mean? Establish an argument here rather than just throwing about some kind of, and I don't know if you're tongue in cheek, so I don't know if I'm picking the wrong argument here, but please set out in greater detail your position rather than just doing flyby random one-liners like that. Anyway, that's enough from me. Globalism, international trade. So, screw globalism. I'm going to build a barrier so I have much more expensive things and I can't buy bananas. Okay, well done. Well, fair enough. You can go and live in the dark ages again if you want. Go for it. I don't know. It's just really ridiculous positions that don't oftentimes make much sense, but it sounds good. And I've read about them on Reddit and conspiracytheory.com. Globalist. I hate these global elites, but I do like Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. I do like Donald Trump. Oh, Donald Trump, I love him. He's not globalist after he just goes and does like ridiculously grifting things in the Gulf states. Like, anyway, I need to go and have myself a cup of tea. Take care, everybody. Speak to you soon. Globalist. Dean.